Hello, all of you Celtic peoples. Doug is back here in my kitchen. It's another brew day. If you tuned into the last episode, I brewed in Oktoberfest. Part of my plan today is to keg that, so that's going to be ready to drink soon. The next episode will probably be a review of that Oktoberfest. But today, what I'm making is another style of mead. If you tuned into episode 2, I talked about a type of mead called a Sizer, which was a mead and cider hybrid. This is another mead hybrid, but rather than it being a cider mead hybrid, this is going to be an ale mead hybrid. It's known as a Braggot. So it uses malted barley, and I'm going to be adding a whole bunch, this entire container, 5 pounds of honey. You'll see this honey is actually from Korea, which is kind of cool. I have a friend that's stationed there, a military guy currently, and he was nice enough to send me some of the Korean honey to work with, so we'll see how that comes out. This is what they call a chestnut honey, so I'm excited to work with that, and that's what I'm working on here, waiting for my pot to come to a boil. But the thing I really wanted to talk about with this recipe is the herbs that I use with it. So in prior episodes, we've talked about how beer is often made with a plant called hops. It's a viney plant with a flower on it. It's really aromatic. It can impart bitterness and some other flavors, sometimes depending on the strain, some citrus, sometimes it's more of a pine flavor, but it's meant to balance the sweetness of the malted barley in a beer, so you have a nice balanced drink rather than something that's overly sweet. The use of hops is something that was introduced relatively recently to the brewing world. Prior to the use of hops, going back to ancient times, various other herbs would have been used in a brew, and because part of what I love about brewing and making my own stuff is that I can create things that I can't necessarily find at a store or even at a brewery. And I like to try to create things that have some sort of relevance to the past, or something that they would have had a long time ago that you can no longer get your hands on today. So that's what the idea of this Braggot is. Going back into the Iron Age and before modern brewing, like the Celts and the Vikings and different peoples of Northern Europe would have drank mead, they would have had ale, they would have been making combinations of the two, just like this Braggot, because it's whatever they could get their hands on, sugar-wise, honey, malted barley, oats, various grains. Same thing with adding herbs, whatever they could get their hands on. And at the time in the Northern Europe, hops were readily available, so it wasn't commonly used. One type of herb that was very much available across really most of the world, and would have been commonly used, is an herb called Mugwort. That's right, Mugwort. It sounds like something Harry Potter would use in a brew. But it was something, and here it is. There's my dried Mugwort, which I will be adding an ounce of this and boiling it in my brew. But Mugwort is particularly interesting because it has such a long history, especially in brewing, but not brewing alone. It would have been used for medicinal purposes. Roman soldiers would have put mugwort into their sandals to try to prevent their feet from fatiguing. It was used as a treatment for fatigue. It was used as a remedy in gardens. People would put mugwort around their garden to try to keep out moths and other unwanted insects. And it has a history of essential oils and other sorts of charms and folklore. For example, mugwort is one of the 9 herbs in something known as the 9 herbs charm, which is something that goes all the way back to Old English paganism. And there's a poem with it that mentions Odin and all that sort of thing. And then even coming closer to modern times in the Christian age, there's various saints that are associated with mugwort, one in particular being Saint John, and there's customs and folklore associated with that as well. So mugwort is a particularly interesting, I would say almost mysterious sort of plant that to me gives this brew I'm making some real authenticity, and makes it that much more interesting. And it's, again, there's a look at it, and it serves the same purpose as hops for brewing. It's going to impart some flavor and some aromatics and some bittering. So again, rather than using hops, which would be more contemporary, I'm trying to keep it historical and use things that they probably would have used long ago. I will get more into what the flavor of the Braggot and how the mugwort contributes to that in the review. But for now, I'm going to wrap this up. I just want to give you a little history behind that mugwort because I think it's really fascinating. and I will see you all again soon. Cilantro.